We all know cross-functional collaboration is important, but actually pulling it off as a marketing leader is a different thing altogether. Customer success is one of those functions that sometimes takes a backseat to meshing with product or sales. Not everything can be in the front seat, of course, but I'm convinced now more than ever that CS belongs there. Aaron Thompson, founder and CEO of Red Slacks, a CS and customer experience consultancy, has a thing to say about that. I first met him when he taught the SuccessHACKER course, and he taught me a great deal about the art and science of minimizing customer attrition. He's next on High Intent, where we explore lessons learned from the front lines of modern marketing. Here we go. All right, well, Aaron, I've known you for quite a while now. I first met you in a SuccessHACKER class, and very happy to have you on High Intent, so welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to hang out. You still are, I believe, the only marketer who took one of my classes, and the thousands of people that I taught, somehow other people didn't have the forethought to think, what are these CSMs actually supposed to do, and how might I best work with them? So definitely appreciate you taking that class so many moons ago.
And I appreciate you for calling that out. I just thought it was common sense because I was marketing a customer success platform and thought I'd better understand the market I was marketing to. So appreciate that.
Makes total sense.
So you've been consulting with companies on customer success for probably over 9 years now. How do most customer success and marketing teams work together in your observations during that consulting? Not necessarily how it should be. What is your observation on how they actually work together in real life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say they don't too oftentimes, you know? One of the first customer success conferences I went to back in 2015, there was a CMO and a CCO on stage together talking about how these two organizations should be best friends. And I thought that makes total sense. And we can get into the reasons why over the next however long we're going to chat here today. But I was blown away in the last 10 years as a consultant and an advisor through my business, redslacks.com, and that they just don't. They typically aren't working. They got the sales kind of in between them in terms of the customer life cycle. And there's just not a whole lot of collaboration directly between those two organizations. The ones who do, I think, are much more effective at not overpromising and nailing their ICP and refining it over time, etc. I should have cleaned up my whiteboard and made it nice. I could show you the funnel and how at the bottom of the funnel, the CS folks, their job should be, part of their job should be to help tell stories back up to the top of the funnel, to the demand gen and awareness marketing engine, so that you can refine your ICP, refine your target over time. Because when you live in the bottom, you really discover who the good, bad, and stretch fit customers are.
Absolutely.
You know, if we're not surfacing that back up to marketing, how are they supposed to know specifically, you know, and getting more targeted? But a lot of organizations just don't do that. And I think it's more of like a MQL to SQL sort of function. And then the SQL to the closed deal to now you got CS implementation, onboarding, all the post sale stuff. And I think a lot gets lost in translation between those two organizations.
I think you just implied sales may occasionally sell it to a bad fit customer. That doesn't actually happen, does it?
No way, never, never, right? Sales would never overpromise and then leave the delivery and all of the promise keeping, I should say, to the operations teams and customer success teams. Of course not. I don't think that they necessarily do overpromise as much as maybe we in the post sale world feel like they do. It's tough when you're on the hook to deliver to not start to get jaded over time. But I've been in deals where the prospect asks, can it do this? And the salesperson says something like, I think it can. Like, it's not designed for that, but yeah, I bet we could find a workaround. And the prospect, if that pain point is large enough, all they wanted to hear was yes. And so now they've heard yes. And so they, yeah, sign me up. I'm in. Sales didn't really overpromise in that circumstance. They were truthful, but then we in operations and delivery end up having to come up with that workaround and make that a reality. And sometimes, that may or may not end up being the case. So I think it's more around misaligned expectations. I think the organizations that have marketing focused on outcomes, because that's where we live in customer success, is did I deliver the outcome that you wanted, the value proposition, whether that's return on an investment, make me bigger, faster, stronger, more efficient, whatever it is that I'm buying your thing to solve, whatever that challenge is. That's what we are tasked with proving in customer success. But it's not necessarily what sales is selling, and it's not typically what marketing is marketing. And that's where the disconnect happens.
Absolutely. And not to just pick on sales, in marketing, many of us believe that we sell the vision, right? We market the vision. It's not necessarily the here and now, but we're marketing for the long term. And sometimes we may sell a vision that doesn't come to fruition at the time of conversion. And I imagine that makes life difficult for customer success folks.
Yeah, and I think it's a different approach to marketing. If I'm going to market what it does, not what it is, that's a very different strategy. But that's where we live. It's all about what did it do, not what is it.
Yeah.
But from a marketer's perspective, it's all about features and functions and bells and whistles and cool drop downs and functionality of what it is, as opposed to it will save you this amount of time or whatever that, again, going back to that value proposition. But you're right. It's all about the vision. It's not necessarily about reality, certainly on day one or day 90. What you're marketing might be what we in customer success would call total value,
Hmm.
whereas our first job is to get you to first value. Time to value, TTV, is critical for driving retention and expansion and all the other post sale motions. And a lot of new customers might think first value is total value, but I'm not going to market the first thing you're going to get. I'm going to market everything and how great your life's going to be. And that's kind of that forward vision that you're referring to. And I think there's probably some disconnect that happens there as well.
Yeah, I imagine. So your answer was kind of what I was expecting on how we work together. How should we work together?
It's probably different for every organization. It's going to be different for large enterprise versus down to startups and stuff. When I came in as the head of customer success the first time back in 2015, I was brought on to fix the churn problem. And I didn't even know what customer success was. I got this job because I had been in support and account management for 20 plus years. And so I came in and I Googled what is customer success on my first day, now that I'm the head of this thing. And I found this industry. And from finding that industry, I learned very quickly, oh, I need to be able to have access to how we market ourselves in the industry. I need to have access to our sales cycle and see what kind of friction points there may or may not be in that. And I need to have access to our product roadmap, because what I'm going to hear from your customers, if it doesn't align with where we want to take the product or how we sell the product or how we market the product, we need to be able to course correct that. I either need to reset the expectations with the customers, or we need to adjust our directional trajectory across those other areas. And so that's what I told the CEO. I said, for me to effectively fix the churn problem, I can't do it in the post sale world alone.
Right.
That's just going to be firefighting. And you've been doing that for 5 years and you can't grow because you got a 40% churn rate year over year. So he allowed me into these other organizations. Then I'm working with our marketing team, I'm working with our sales team, and working with product to make sure that we're all aligned. And so that's how it worked for me. And it had a profound effect. We literally shifted our marketing messaging so that it more matched what it does, less of what it is. And then we were selling more around the outcomes versus which features and functions do you want. And then we were developing new functionality on the roadmap based on what customers were telling us they wanted, et cetera. And in a year, that 40% was down to 8%. And now we'd fixed the leaky bucket, if you will. But that's the only way I see it actually working, is if at the leadership level, you have connective tissue bringing people together. Maybe now today in the Zoom world, this was pre-COVID and pre how we operate today. So we were all in one office together. So we had meetings. We'd actually go through all of that. But I think that's the first step, is just getting the leadership in the same room so that you've got that voice of the customer. But it's important for the CS leader to know what is the direction of the roadmap. Where do we want to take the product? How do we want to sell? How do we want to market ourselves? So that I'm not just getting a bunch of feedback and bringing it to these other leaders, which then it ends up being noise. I've got to be able to filter out the good ideas from the bad ideas, if you will, from the customer, voice of the customer, and bring those good ideas to the marketing team, to the sales team, to product, all the other organizations. And so I need to know what direction we want to go. I need to be involved in that decision so that I know what's good and bad in terms of feedback from customers. And I think a lot of people don't do that. I think they just gather all the insights, bring it to the marketers, and give it to them like, here's what we should do. And the marketers are like, let's not in the direction that we want to take the brand, for example. And now we're just basically advocating on behalf of a customer that's not in line with where our company's going. And it creates friction as opposed to reducing it.
Let's role play for a second. So let's say you were just hired as the chief customer officer, and I was just hired as the chief marketing officer. Let's say we have a bit of a retention problem, i.e., high churn. How should you and I work together in real life? What would that look like to you?
The first conversation I want to have with you is around our ICP. What is our ideal customer profile based on products and whatever SKUs we may have in our business? But for each given product or SKU or solution, who are we actively marketing and why? And then I should be able to go do some homework on my own. I shouldn't have to take much more of your time until I can then go take what you've given me and see how it's actually played out in the real world. To your point, if there's a churn problem or something, that may or may not be a bad thing. If it is our ICP that is churning, sure, that's a bad thing. But if it's a bad fit customer and it's not our ICP anyway, then we might have just brought on the wrong kind of customer, and we got to stay in our lane. But I don't know what our lane is until you tell me who you believe our ICP is. And then through data analysis, I should be able to come to you and say, actually, here's the ICP
Yeah.
based on expansion and retention and what has happened in the real world. And that's what I mean by refining the target so that we can help you. If we're marketing the same way today as we did a year ago, we missed all that experience of the last 12 months of all the expanding customers, advocate customers, and churned customers, and we didn't get any smarter over time. I don't blame marketing for that. I blame customer success for that. That's part of our job, is to bring those stories so that you're constantly iterating on who you go after, because you want to be as efficient as possible with that top of funnel spend. Most companies, that's like 40% of the available revenue that they have, they're spending to get the MQLs and get the SQLs. And so we want to be as efficient as possible with that. And all we have to do is get really good with data. And that's, I think, another area where customer success doesn't necessarily have the muscle that they should. Marketing is very data driven. Open rates and click throughs and all the different stuff. And we can learn from you on that, on our data set around, like, you should be able to come to me and say, who's a good advocate? Who would be our asset next time? And I should be able to go find out in the data. And so often I can't. I have to go do a survey or some kind of voice of the customer program to get you those answers. We should know that if we're actually coherent enough in the customer data in the post-sale world.
So let's say you and I, to continue this, let's say you and I have a rolling meeting every other week. What are a couple of things that you want to know from the marketing side? And what are a couple of things that I should know from the CS side?
Yeah. So what I would want to know, from once we kind of figure out who we both land on as the ICP and we kind of come to an agreement there, the next I would want to know across segmentation. And if we haven't done segmentation, as a fractional VP of CS, or when I've been a CCO and a head of CS, the very first thing I ever do is segmentation. We've got to figure out tier 1, 2, 3. Even if we don't go externally with it, internally, I've got to know who is our top 20% of customers, because they're going to account for 80% of our revenue. And then I need to know who's in the middle 60%. They're kind of like a lower tier. And then I need to know who's our bottom 20%. Those are the ones that I really don't want to spend time worrying about. So that's like a tech touch kind of model. And so I would want to know from you, within the top 20%, are we doing in customer lifecycle marketing? And if so, who is on the email list? Who's agreed to get the email? That's kind of the baseline. Who's opening the email?
Okay.
Who's clicking on the call to action? Because all of that data should be going into my health score and what I consider a healthier customer. That's
Yeah.
one type of data that we'll use, because if I'm actually engaging with your marketing materials, that's a sign of health. That if I am not even on the email list, but I'm a customer and I've unsubscribed, that's a different sign of health, right? And so I would want to know that type of data from you. And if you're not doing life cycle marketing, then I'd want to strategize with you on, again, for the top 20%, starting there, what can we start to do in terms of.
What kind of content they would want to see? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Read a few reports on the state of CS in 2025, 2026. I'm taking that customer success is shifting from a relationship based engagement to more outcome driven value management with an increased focus on financial impact, data literacy, and AI enabled decision making. Sounds good, but hey, do you agree with this?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but I feel like it should have already been shifting.
Yeah.
That's what it's always been about. One of the first things I learned about customer success was the definition of what success is. And luckily for my little chicken brain, I can understand it. Customer success equals your desired outcome plus your desired experience. So, did you get what you wanted in terms of ROI or value proposition?
Mhm.
And did you obtain it through an experience that you like? Whether that's high touch, tech touch, low touch, whatever, but whatever that experience, whatever the journey looks like. And when you put those two together, that is your definition of success. And so what we do is we define that. And so it's always been in the definition of what we do, this outcome thing. But I think, I mean, again, I've been doing this since 2015. So from then until about 2023, it was really more focused on the experience. Happiness scores were a thing. Like, is the customer happy? Like, I could love you, but if I'm not getting my outcome from your products and services, I'm not going to continue to pay you money. And I could hate you. But if the only way for me to get that outcome is from your company, then I'm going to continue paying you money. We saw this play out in a lot of different ways. Most recently for me here, I've lived in this home for about 5 years. For the first four and a half, almost, not even 5 years, Comcast was the only way for me to get high speed internet.
I'm sorry.
I know, right? Like the poster child for anti customer success, right?
Yep.
But I kept paying them. I was on auto pay every month because I have to have high speed internet. But I don't trust them. I don't have TV through them or phone or anything else. It's just internet because I want to have as little to do with them as possible. I've just had a horrible experience with them over the years.
Everybody does.
Yeah, right. And so around Thanksgiving time, the doorbell rings, and I go get the door, and there's this guy going door to door selling quantum high speed fiber internet. And I signed up on the spot because now I have another way to get high speed internet in my home. And I always knew once there's another way for me to achieve my outcome, because the experience was so bad with Comcast, I'm going to try it because I assume the devil I don't know is going to actually have a better experience than the devil I do know in Comcast in that situation. And lo and behold, it's been great. It's less expensive, it's twice as fast. I don't have a negative relationship with them in the past. There's no emotional baggage. That's where the experience comes into play in terms of determining winners and losers. It's when there's more than one way for me to achieve my outcome. But as long as you're the only way for me to get my outcome, you don't have to worry about experience as much. But in customer success, it's always been about that first and foremost.
Yeah.
Define what success is, deliver on that definition, and demonstrate that you've done so. That's what we do in CS, and that's all about outcomes. And I think a lot of companies market features and functions, they sell features and functions, and then CS, it's kind of like, are you adopting the features and functions without ever taking that next step to why do you want these features and functions? What is the actual business outcome, goal, challenge, regulatory requirement, whatever the thing is that you're looking to solve, what is that? So that I can then prove to you that you've done so. And then we can look at sales and marketing and maybe start shifting some of that branding around to what those outcomes are. That then makes everything smoother because now we're all speaking the same language from the top of the customer life cycle all the way through to renewal, expansion, advocacy, and all the other post sale motions.
My last interview was with a owner of an agency that focuses on customer marketing. So my question to you is, who should own customer marketing?
Who should own it? I never really liked the concept of ownership. Like I'm such a cross departmental person that like one person owning the customer, one person owns revenue. Like,
Well, they got to sit somewhere. They can't be floating around, but
it's just not how it works though. Like in cycle customer marketing, the tactical motions of doing the marketing should be marketing. The targeting of who to market what thing to, the lead identification should be customer success. I should be able to tell you here are, 100 customers who are prime for this expansion SKU. They
right.
have SKU 1, they are getting value from SKU 1, but I don't know that they know about SKU 2. So let's go market SKU 2 to them because we've identified them as qualified. We call them CSQLs, but customer success qualified leads. I should be able to bring that to you and then have you go do the marketing and bring them through the funnel, right? Get them into because usually it's not the CS person who's doing the sale of SKU 2. That usually goes back to the account exec. So now we've got sales back involved for that expansion motion. And then I'll be on the delivery side and I'll tell you who's ready for SKU 3, etc. But I think like the tactical and then also the data behind it, like who is open to the email and who's clicked into the CTA and like understanding that to see high intent. Nice plug for your podcast.
Well,
That would be all done by marketing, but like the identification of who to target, that I believe should be done by customer success.
yeah. You want a heavy say in the customer marketing that we put out.
In the target, yeah, and who we're going after. What I don't want is for you to start marketing to my customers a bunch of stuff that I know they don't care about.
Right.
Now you're spamming my customers. Now they're
Yep.
going to start unsubscribing. Now you're actually degrading the health. You'd have been better off just not doing anything to them.
Right. Yep.
It's almost more important to be really precise with who your total addressable market is for customer marketing than it is for net new marketing. Because on that, they haven't built a relationship with you. They don't have expectations. They aren't paying you money. But in customer marketing, they are. And the last thing we want to do is add friction to that experience part of the formula by sending them stuff that they maybe either already have or have
Or
expressed a disinterest in. And so that's why I want to be really engaged with that, with who you're going to go after, but how you go after them and all of that. You're the marketers, you're the experts. That's not my skill set.
yep. Okay. Here's something that I think a lot of us fall flat on from a marketing perspective is the onboarding process. At least in my experience, how should marketing be involved from a framework and institutional way? How should we be involved in the onboarding process, in your opinion?
I think the implementation team or the onboarding team or the customer success team, whoever is doing the onboarding, sometimes it's even a support part of the support organization. I think they should partner with marketing to understand what a good campaign looks like, but focus it on the milestones that we know are a healthy onboarding process. So from sign up to that time to to the initial value that I was talking about, that TTV clock or time to value clock is critical for us.
About a month, right?
Yeah, down to the weeks or months, depending on the complexity of the product. But I need to be tracking that because it's the number one indicator of churn and renewal. We know long tail, that's going to have a huge impact on whether we can retain the customer or we're going to lose the customer. And so it's mission critical to get onboarding just dialed in. I should know as a onboarding specialist, an implementation CS, whoever, what the perfect onboarding timeline looks like. What do they do on day one, week one, month one that we know, okay, they're driving adoption and engagement and we're getting sticky, right? And so I need to understand that first and foremost. But how I would communicate with them and what the messaging would look like and the branding and all of those tactical touch points, I want my marketing team doing it. I don't want my CS team doing that because again, we're not marketers.
Yep.
We're going to get off brand. We're going to send something that's not
Don't do that.
in line, right? Yeah, exactly. And now we're possibly adding friction where we could have been reducing it, et cetera. And so it's sort of like the customer marketing paradigm that I talked about. CS finds the leads, and then the marketing should do the actual marketing on them. CS should find the ones that need prodding, and the marketers should do the marketing to prod them. So get them back in the product. If they're not engaging, if they're not logging in, whatever they're falling short of doing in terms of that ideal onboarding timeline and life cycle, marketing should be heavily involved in the execution of it, but we should be feeding who we need to be sending these messages to.
This is a lot of collaboration, Aaron.
I know, what a pain, right?
You just made me think of something that I've had so many debates on with product teams and other teams is, let's say that as your new CMO, I've allocated a certain amount of resources to improve TTV, total time to value. And we're sitting in a room and we're debating what that should actually look like. Should I, as the marketer, go after the biggest feature or functionality that's going to give you that TTV? Or should I focus on something that's not being adopted enough? So, in other words, should I focus on something that everyone should be using, or something that I think people should be using but aren't? Because you can't do everything.
And so are you talking about to net new prospects or
Customers. Yeah, customers. Let's say you're using a platform like Pendo or whatever, and it says, nobody's really using feature X, and we put so much time and effort into feature X, and probably haven't sold and marketed it enough, and we believe it has good value. Or there's a feature Y that everybody is using, and we know works, but as a marketer, I can't do everything. What would you pick?
I would pick whatever is going to get because we're talking about TTV. So this is a new customer who we're tracking that initial time to value. I would pick whichever one would be what you would call the aha moment, right? That's what we're trying to get to, is get the net new customer to have that, oh, this is really cool. And
Yeah.
so if that's feature X, it should be that. If it's feature Y or feature Z, I don't know. But whatever that low hanging fruit, like I always use the analogy of the first time I went on Facebook. Like I went on Facebook, I didn't understand what social media was. This was 2005 or 4 or something. And I had heard about this Facebook thing. I logged on, I set up my account. Okay, that's fine. I'm kind of looking around and it's like connect with your friends here, right? And so I click on it and then it gives me a list of people and I'm like, "Oh my god, look at all these people from high school I haven't talked to forever. Oh, this guy was on my tennis team, this guy was on my basketball team, bing 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 bing." Start sending all these requests and lo and behold I connect. I'm like, "Okay, that's whatever." But then the aha was when my buddy Colin sent me a message and we started corresponding on Facebook through just like DMs. And I learned that he was living in Washington, D.C., and I hadn't seen him in over 10 years. He was working
Yeah.
for the NSA and couldn't really tell me a whole lot about what he was working on. And it was like, oh my God, the power of this thing.
Yeah.
That's the aha of Facebook. And everybody had that experience. Every product has to have that. You've got to know what that one thing is. And that's what you should be marketing in terms of TTV. Because there was a lot of other stuff I could do with Facebook that weren't that aha. Like my initial value was getting to talk to Colin West for the first time in forever. Then I learned about events and collaboration and posting my own stuff and learning about, like all the other functions of Facebook came later. The big aha was being able to reconnect with old friends. Every product has to have that, whatever that is. And that's what should be initially marketed and pushed because that's what's going to create that stickiness. And then you move into the customer marketing of all the other stuff. Did you know you could do this? Did you know you could do that?
Okay. Do you want to see thought leadership in post-sale marketing?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I want that thought leadership to not just be around expanding of current customers, introducing them to other things they could buy when they're ready, etc. But I also want to be around creating advocates of them
Right.
and having advocacy plays so that we can have them generating net new leads for us
Mhm.
by way of their networks, their word of mouth, their thought leadership, etc. And so I want to have both from my marketing team for my customer base with two different goals, right? One's to get that person to buy more stuff. The other is to give them a platform so that they can tell everybody how great we are so that we can create a lower acquisition cost blended across our business because MQLs are the most expensive net new business we're ever going to have. If we can get an advocate out there to drive a new lead into our funnel that we didn't have to market in the first place, that's where that flywheel of growth and all these different corny buzzword bingo things you hear about, but that's where it all starts from. And that's a core, in my eyes, that's a core marketing function is how are we going to create advocates?
Right.
How do we make them marketers for us?
Glad to hear you say that. All right. So here's a tactical problem, and that is, and probably one of the most important things that we can do as marketers is finding customers to quote and film for case. I hate the word case study, but case studies and other social reference marketing items. The reality is finding them is so difficult. It's such a slog. It's a total struggle bus.
Yeah.
You'd think it would be easy, but in my experience, it's not, and it's very a disorganized process.
It is.
And one thing that I've always wanted to work on and never have quite institutionalized is how to institutionalize reference case study programs. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, reference fatigue is what we're all trying to prevent, right? Like we end up going back to the same customers to be references for us over and over and they start to get fatigued and
Yeah, I can imagine.
yeah, now we're negatively affecting the experience, part of that formula that I talked about. And so how we grow the volume of referenceable customers, there's a number of different ways. Back in the day, it was really about a voice of the customer or an NPS survey that we're going to go reach out, and anybody who gives us a really good score, we're going to see if they will be a reference.
Hey, thanks for giving us a good score. We're gonna harass you now for a year.
We're going to ask you exactly. We're going to ask you to do more work for us now that you've, reflected positively. And then the negative ones, we obviously try to figure out what went wrong and correct it. But that's kind of like the old school way of doing it. In today's day and age, with all of these AI tools that can integrate into all of your communication channels that you're having with your customers, we should, in customer success, be able to very quickly and easily grow that volume of advocates or possible advocates, not based on any surveys or VOC efforts or motions, but just based on the conversations that they're having with us every day, week, month. All the emails, all the call transcripts from across support to success to account management to sales, everybody who's interacting with everybody on both sides of the table. There are so many ways now that I can pull that data and make sense of what's in it. And then by leveraging AI, figure out on my own who would be good advocate targets for us to go engage with so that we can grow that volume. And then that's going to grow your volume of case studies and customer stories. All of that should be done by customer success. Finding the target is really our job. We should be able to do
Thank
that.
you for saying that because in my experience, it's always been marketing's job, and it's so difficult to be going through MPS, and we all know MPS is not rocket science. It's a very light gauge of happiness, but I agree. I think customer success should be doing that for us. finding us these customers and giving us context and letting us take care of it from there, right?
Exactly.
You give us the list, but I often see that doesn't happen in real life, unfortunately.
Yeah, if we're doing this right, customer success should make marketing's life easier.
Yeah.
We should be able to source customer marketing for expansion, source advocate opportunities. And then again, if we're surfacing back up the good fit, stretch fit, bad fit customers to you, we should actually help you refine that ICP of the net new that you're going after.
Yeah.
We should be able to make your life easier. We should also make sales life easier if we're doing customer success the right way. Too often, it's really just a glorified customer support role. I'm reacting to all these fires and putting out
You
all
gotta be
these,
proactive. Yeah.
right? Yeah, these are all proactive, strategic initiatives that fall under CS as opposed to the reactive, tactical stuff of support.
Yep. Again, I'm glad to hear you say that. And I think that's a very important thing that we need to figure out because nobody wants to hear salespeople and marketers tell them how good our product is. They'd rather hear it from, and this isn't, again, not rocket science. They'd rather hear it from real people, right? And it's so important. And there's so much you can do with customer references, social media posts, references in emails, videos. I love doing, and it's a big ask for a customer. I'm aware of that, but it's such a powerful tool. And I think we need to be doing this on a monthly basis.
Yeah. And I think customer success can leverage gathering video testimonials, for example. You can use that multiple ways. So we can give that to marketing to use in some kind of marketing fodder for either net new or in-base customer marketing
Or expansion.
or expansion. Yeah.
Yeah.
We could also use it in a company all hands to show the entire company the positives of what they're doing.
Right.
Like engineering never talks to customers. They never hear from customers, but they spend countless hours building a thing. Isn't it so great for them to see a customer, even if it's just a 1 minute quick little video,
Yeah.
but from the customer's mouth, when we implemented this feature, it has made my life so much better because XYZ. Like we can use it for multiple different reasons, but that's part of our job is to go gather that stuff. Because otherwise, a lot of times we end up just kind of feeling like everything we do is negative. Like when you live in the post sale, it's like sales is over promising and marketing is misaligned and our product sucks because all we ever get is bugs and all
And the
this crap.
system crashed last week and blah,
Yep.
blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Yeah.
I'm getting beat up by all the customers and everything's always on fire and it's all negative, negative, negative. There is a ton of positive and it's our job to go mine that, find that. And then again, we can surface it up to the marketers to use in various ways. And even just for product teams and engineering teams and other areas of the business that don't ever engage
Yeah.
with customers or
I love
prospects.
that for the engineers, the internal marketing aspect of it to make their morale and their understanding better. I like that.
Yeah, it's got to be gratifying. I mean, I was a software programmer for 6 years. The most gratifying thing I had was watching people use the thing I built.
Sure. Yeah, I could imagine.
It's like, oh my God, it works. I spent so much time on that. Can't believe it actually works.
Last question, unless there's something else that you think I missed, but it's a big one. What do you guys actually think of marketing? What do you talk about behind our backs? Good, bad.
I don't want to speak for all of customer success, but I think personally, marketing, I mean, it's obviously the tip of the spear, right? Like without effective marketing and lead generation, sales can't do their job. And if they can't do their job, we can't do our job. And so it all starts with marketing. I personally am a terrible marketer. And so I have all the respect in the world for people who can do it effectively. And you've got such different kinds of marketing. You've got brand building and brand awareness. Then you've got the content side to, the SEO. And now we've got GEO as a big component in marketing. And it's just always constantly evolving as technology changes over time. And I'm frankly, like, not to ingratiate myself to you, but I'm amazed when people can do it well.
Mhm.
I look at different brands that like Nike being here in Portland, Oregon, like Nike, right? Like that's in my backyard. And the Just Do It, the genius of Just Do It, and the genius of the Jordan brand back in the day, and Apple's Think Different campaigns and all of that. The ones who do that, it's just amazing to me that they can strike such a chord. But if I come back to my initial statement around market what it does, not what it is, that's why those two campaigns were so wildly successful. Just Do It didn't talk about the fabric of the shoes and the
Right.
rubber on the soles. It was an idea of whatever the hell it is for you, go do it and use Nike to help you get that.
Yeah.
Same thing with Think Different. You know, he started with the why and kind of worked his way out. And that, I think, is what makes a really profound marketer, is one who is in line with what it does, not just what it is. And then that translates into selling what it does. And then it allows us in delivery to deliver what it does. And we're all aligned. That's the nirvana. So me personally, what I think of marketing is, I'm amazed that you can do it. You know, I've been an entrepreneur for 10 years, and the one thing I can tell you, the hardest thing to do is to let people know I exist
Yeah.
and generate those leads and that demand.
Thank you for saying that. I'm going to double down though. What do you say behind our backs that's not so nice?
Oh my God, these guys, they don't even know the customer.
We don't know the
They
customer.
don't
Yeah.
know the customer. They don't know the ICP. They think we're going, but these are bad fit and we're hitting this and it's not going to be a successful, long-standing renewing customer. If they were only commissioned on renewal, and if they only got some spiff every time a customer renewed,
Yeah.
and then if they only got docked every time a customer churned, I wonder how they'd market differently. Wonder
Ah,
who they'd market differently. That
okay.
would be probably the negative side of that coin.
Okay. That's good to know. I think we all should sit in on customer meetings on the regular, all, whether you're a individual contributor or a leader. Yeah, that tracks for sure. I appreciate that. Anything I missed, Aaron?
No, I don't think so, Justin. I just appreciate you having me on the show and want to plug my site, redslacks.com, customer success advising and consulting and educational services. Love to chat with anybody who's curious to learn about customer success, especially marketers, because like I said, you were the only one to come take my class. And so I'd love to chat with anybody else on your audience who's interested.
And I will say that you're a very good teacher. I remember your class very vividly. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, if nothing else, I try to bring the energy and hopefully keep people awake. That's
yeah, you definitely did.
the idea.
But thanks for being on, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Justin. Appreciate
All
it.
right. See ya.